I need time to think, she whispered, temporarily retreating as vulnerability washed over her, juxtaposed with the spark of passion igniting in Desmond's eyes. Outside, footsteps echoed ominously down a nearby alley. A shadow streaked across the ground, revealing one of Laelani's husband's enforcers. They exchanged glances, with a group of men loitering in the back corner of a bar, unaware that their surveillance painted him as just another pawn in a larger game. The air hummed with the weight of secrets, and everyone was at risk. In the studio, Desmond turned sharply, the crack of a stick underfoot breaking his concentration. "Did you hear that?" he asked, a switch flipping in his demeanor, tension tightening the corners of his jaw. "No, what do you mean?" Laelani's heartbeat quickened, her instincts screaming at her. She glanced toward the door, sensing the palpable danger edging closer. "Stay here," Desmond instructed, a flash of protector lighting his features, but Laelani's defiance flared. "Like I'd let you face it alone?" The electricity in the air surged as he stepped forward, capturing her wrist lightly yet firmly. "You don't understand what you're asking for," he said, locking their eyes, the chaos outside becoming irrelevant compared to the fire between them. "This is no longer just a game of desires. I'm tired of choices, Desmond. I want more than safety. I want—" She hesitated, the admission hanging precariously as their breaths mingled. "I want to live fully, even if it includes you." Desmond studied her, searching for something within her depths, a recognition that this quest for passion could cost them dearly. "Then we face it together," he declared, his determination unwavering. "But know this, one decision can change everything. What will you choose, Laelani?" As Laelani opened her mouth to respond, the sound of gunfire erupted outside, shattering the fragile bubble they created, and in that instant a path was forged, a fate intertwined with choices that bore the weight of love and peril both. Scene 97. Creating New Paths. In the fading light of dusk, the terracotta-tiled courtyard of Laelani Sinclair's home felt like a sanctuary caught in the tumult of an emerging storm. Shadows danced across the walls, clashing with the gentle flicker of lanterns that illuminated the space like scattered stars. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, yet it bore an unsettling tension, as if every flower held a whisper of the secrets swirling within its petals. Laelani stood at the edge of the courtyard, her dark curls catching the breeze as she glanced up at the low-hanging clouds, contemplating the weight of the decisions that awaited her. The only sound was the distant rattle of dishes in the kitchen, as Keisha, her devoted friend, prepped a celebratory dinner for the return of daylight. Suddenly, Desmond Carver appeared, his silhouette framed against the dawn, bold and resolute. He took a step closer, hesitating at the threshold of her thoughts. "You seem miles away," he said, his voice the richest velvet slicing through her reverie. "I was just thinking," Laelani replied, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips, but the hint of worry lingered beneath, "about what our future holds and how we'll navigate the chaos." Desmond crossed the distance between them, his presence magnetic. "Chaos or not, there's beauty in the uncertainty, Laelani. It's like a canvas waiting for paint." His gaze lingered on her, understanding threading between them. For a moment, the world outside the gates faded into insignificance. Before Laelani could respond, Keisha barged in, a flourish of energy that pulled them from their introspection. "All right, lovebirds, dinner is served, and if you two are going to dawdle, you'll miss the best part." Her laughter was infectious, brightening the tension holding the two at the precipice of their emotions. "Coming," Laelani shouted, playfully rolling her eyes. They turned to follow Keisha, but Laelani lingered for a moment, her breath catching as she felt Desmond's hand, warm against her back. As they entered the dining room, the robust aroma of spiced lamb mingled with roasted vegetables, promising comfort. The table was vibrant with colors, deep burgundies, golden yellows, and radiant greens. Around it, a motley crew of Laelani's friends had gathered, critical Mari, ever-present Alberto, and boisterous Tasha, with a smile as big as her personality. "Sit, sit, the food will not eat itself, and I need my top patrons for my culinary reviews," Mari announced, arms akimbo, before gesturing to the seats. As plates filled, laughter resonated, breaking the tension like sunlight cracking through clouds. "Tell us a story, Desmond," Tasha urged, her eyes glittering with mischief. "Something enchanting like how you and Laelani met under the most unusual circumstances." Desmond smirked, a spark igniting in his eyes. Well, let's just say it was a little less romantic and a lot more life-threatening. The group gasped theatrically, underscoring their surprise, while Laelani playfully shoved Desmond with her shoulder, eliciting a ripple of shared amusement. "Really?" Tasha exclaimed, leaning closer. Another time, Desmond deflected, his tone more serious as he met Laelani's gaze. "Let's just say, I've had my fair share of thrilling escapes." The unspoken weight hung in the air, drawing wary glances. "That sounds ominous," Alberto chimed in, unease creeping into his usually jovial demeanor. "Is this place really safe? We all know there are some serious players lurking outside our lovely bubble." "Honestly," Desmond began, his voice lower now, more intimate, as if he were revealing a secret that required trust. "Safety is an illusion, but with you all here it feels a little more possible." In that moment, among the vibrancy of friendship, a circle woven tight by loyalty and challenges, Laelani caught Desmond's eye, vulnerability dancing in the electric atmosphere. It felt like a silent pledge. Whatever storms awaited them, they would face them together. Challenging her fears, she leaned closer to Desmond, the warmth rolled off him, grounding yet exhilarating. "We're creating new paths, aren't we?" she said softly. His smile, filled with quiet confidence, ignited something within her. "Yes, we are," he affirmed, his gaze steadying her racing heart. As the evening unfolded, their laughter soared above the clink of glasses, punctuated by playful jabs from Keisha and Tasha's whimsical stories, reinforcing the realization that in the midst of chaos, there thrived a fierce desire for connection, for joy, and perhaps love that defied the odds. And in that vibrant room, as whispered plans entwined with cradled secrets, Laelani felt reassured. The world in all its chaos could be painted one bold brushstroke at a time. Scene 98. A New Dawn. The first rays of the sun spilled through Laelani's bedroom window, painting soft strokes of gold on the walls, infusing the air with warmth and the promise of a new day. She stirred, her heart racing as if still caught in the wave of dreams that tossed her between desire and dread. Desmond stood across the room, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with an intensity that pulled her breath away. "Do you think he knows?" Laelani asked, pulling the covers closer to her chest, though she felt no chill. Desmond's dark eyes sparkled with mischief as he shook his head. If he did, there'd be more than just morning light breaking in here. The room felt charged, the kind of tension that danced on the edge of a knife. Laelani lowered her gaze to the worn floorboards, trying to steady the swirl of possibilities battling in her mind. Memories of laughter shared with Desmond, of heated glances and softly spoken confessions, fought against the heavy weight of her allegiance to Marcus, her husband. "It's a tangled web, Desmond. I don't even know where I stand anymore." "Perhaps you stand in the middle of a masterpiece," he replied, stepping forward, the sun casting shadows across his face that accentuated the angles of his features, creating an enchanting sight. "Or a mess," she countered, a slight edge in her voice despite the warmth blooming inside her. The weather outside mirrored her internal chaos. Clouds clashed and coiled like her unresolved feelings, casting shadows that loomed just over her shoulder. "Oh, please," he laughed, and the sound soothed her frayed edges. "Life is either a mess or a masterpiece. You just happen to be standing in the middle of both." From the corner of the living room, laughter echoed. Laelani looked to the hallway where Kai, her younger brother, and Maya, his boisterous girlfriend, ambled in, their carefree interaction a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions she felt. "What's cooking in here?" Maya called, her brightly colored dress swirling around her as she attempted to spin away from Kai's playful grasp. "Nothing yet, but Laelani's deep in thought, probably sketching out her next masterpiece," Desmond replied, his eyes twinkling with warmth as he subtly gestured toward Laelani. "Boring." Kai threw his hands up. "We need to do something crazy. You two are all serious," he said, his playful demeanor buoying Laelani's spirits. "Let's flee to the coast, a road trip." "Now that's more like it," Maya chimed in, excitement weaving through her tone. "Nothing says freedom like the open road." Laelani's expression shifted. The notion of escape held a dangerous allure. Forget about Marcus," Desmond interrupted gently, a reassuring smile breaking through his mask of intensity. "This is your life, Laelani. No one can dictate your freedom, not even him." An electric pulse surged between them, a silent understanding blooming in the air like the sunlight spilling through the window. Laelani took a deep breath, feeling the weight on her chest lighten. Road trip sounds like an excellent plan, she finally admitted, a smile creeping onto her face, although shadows lingered beneath her eyes. Just no detours into the chaos, okay? Chaos? Desmond feigned innocence, raising an eyebrow. Doesn't sound like my style at all. His voice dripped with playful irony, easing her heart like balm. The light-hearted banter seemed to ground them, drawing a laughter from Laelani as Maya and Kai exchanged playful smirks. One condition, Laelani declared. We pack snacks, all the snacks. Now you're talking, Maya rallied, jumping up and down with the enthusiasm of a child given magical permission. As the plan swirled around her in laughter and teasing, Laelani felt herself loosening, laughing without the weight of guilt, if only for a moment. Desmond's smile remained unwavering, full of promise and understanding, but behind it the storm brewed, a shadow of urgency flickering in his eyes. Yet, as they crowded together, the bond between them deepened, tethered by shared secrets and relentless yearning. Desmond leaned closer to her, whispering, "Whatever happens, we'll navigate through it together, Laelani. Just trust the force that led you here." As the room filled with buoyant chatter, the clouds outside began to break apart, revealing the bright blue sky, a new dawn promising not just hope, but also an unbearable tension that lingered in the air. And with a firm resolve silenced by the weight of flies and unbidden cravings, Laelani murmured, "Then, let's embrace the morning." Scene 99. Trusting the unknown, the dimly lit loft was filled with the rich scent of sandalwood and jasmine, a heady combination that hung in the air like an unspoken promise. The walls, adorned with Laelani's vibrant canvases, reflected her inner turmoil, chaotic strokes intertwined with fleeting moments of beauty. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Its distant sounds filtered through the open window, creating an intimate backdrop to the tempest brewing within. Laelani stood near the easel, hesitating, the paintbrush trembling in her grip. Desmond leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, an uncharacteristic seriousness shadowing his features. He watched her, the passion in her auburn curls, the way her brow furrowed in concentration, a complex tapestry of strength and vulnerability. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice low, threading through the stillness like the wind. Laelani turned, her expression a mix of determination and doubt. "That I need to shed this façade. All of it." The brush fell into the pot of paint with a soft thud, to strip away the layers and reveal what's beneath. Desmond pushed himself off the wall and stepped closer, the floor creaking beneath his weight. As he approached, the warmth radiating from him enveloped her like a comforting embrace. "You're not just the art you create, Laelani," he said, his gaze penetrating. "You're so much more than this world defines you to be." His compliment ignited something within her, a flickering ember that she had long buried under the weight of expectations. "What if I don't even know who that is?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then let's discover it together." Desmond's smile was soft yet confident, his hand brushing against hers on the table, eliciting a rush of electricity between them. The tension swelled, thick and intoxicating, as they stood inches apart, the reality of their forbidden attraction at the forefront of their minds. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the staircase outside, and both of them stiffened. Laelani's heart raced, but Desmond's hand found her shoulder, a steady anchor amidst an invisible storm. "Relax, whoever it is, they can't take this moment from us." Then, the door swung open to reveal Serenity, Laelani's spirited best friend, her laughter spilling into the room like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Well, look who we have here. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." She grinned widely, her presence a whirlwind of energy that immediately lightened the air heavy with tension. "Just discussing the nature of art," Laelani replied, her voice regaining its usual brightness, even as she shot a cautious glance at Desmond, who remained impressively composed. "Oh, really?" Serenity chimed, feigning ignorance as she inspected the half-finished canvas. "Because I'd say this looks like two people entangled in a moment of—" "Serenity," Laelani cut in sharply, blushing. "You have a terrible sense of timing." "Oh, but I have a wonderful nose for drama," Serenity retorted with a playful twinkle in her eyes, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. You both should know I have a reputation to uphold as the most insightful observer of the human condition." Desmond chuckled, the tension momentarily dissipating under Serenity's infectious lightheartedness. "Perhaps you should teach a class," he said, his gaze flickering back to Laelani, "about reading the air." Serenity pivoted to him, undeterred. "And you? It might be best if you keep your heart and your suit jacket on, handsome. I can't have you swooning over Laelani in front of me." Laelani's cheeks flushed deeper as she exchanged a knowing glance with Desmond, their earlier intimacy momentarily eclipsed by laughter. Serenity's entrance had burst their bubble, yet it didn't diminish the warmth blooming in the space between them. She could see their connection pulsing like a heartbeat, even as she remained the joyful interloper. "Sometimes you're just too much, you know," Laelani said to her friend, smiling. "But you love it," Serenity shot back, waving her hand dismissively. "Anyway, are we having a post-art discussion party, or is this a pre-mystery reveal situation?" "I think we're still figuring things out," Laelani replied, her eyes drifting back to Desmond, whose expression suggested a newfound resolve. "But maybe that's the adventure." "Now you're speaking my language," Desmond grinned, stepping just a hair closer. "The unknown can be thrilling." With the city outside brimming with life and countless challenges waiting at their doorstep, Laelani finally understood. Trusting the unknown meant embracing the exhilaration that came with risking everything. She breathed in deeply, fortified by the bond they were crafting together as they faced darkness hand in hand. "Together, then," she whispered, determination rising within her. "Together," Desmond echoed, his voice firm, their fates intertwined like the vibrant strands of Laelani's art. Scene 100. The road ahead. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the sprawling estate of Laelani Sinclair. The garden, lush and vibrant, provided an inviting contrast to the rigidity of her life. Underneath the branches of an imposing cherry blossom tree, Laelani knelt on the cool grass, her fingers carefully tending to the potted herbs that lined the stone pathway. This small act of nurturing felt both mundane and sacred, as if every leaf and sprout held echoes of her truths yet to be uncovered. "Can I help?" Desmond Carver offered, a playful grin splitting his handsome features as he stepped into her space, flicking dirt from his hands. "Only if you promise not to kill anything," she replied, her voice teasing but laced with an edge of vulnerability. Laelani cast him a sidelong glance, her heart racing as their pasts swirled like blossoms in the warm breeze. Desmond knelt beside her, mimicking her movements while clearly reveling in the intimacy of the moment. "I promise my horticultural skills are unrivaled," he said, plucking a withered leaf with exaggerated precision, and she couldn't help but chuckle softly. The sound fluttered in the air, mingling with the chirp of nearby birds, a balm to her troubled heart. As they worked side by side, the weight of what lay ahead settled between them. The tension thickened, ripe with unspoken words, as they both recognized the precarious road they were on. Glancing at him, she watched as the sun caught the brass chain of his watch, accentuating the strength of his forearms. They had moved beyond mere desire. Their connection had blossomed into something deeper, something achingly real. "What will happen when this," she gestured to the gardens, "isn't enough anymore?" Laelani asked, her voice dropping to a mere whisper. Desmond paused, meeting her eyes, the playful banter retreating into a more solemn space. "Then we find something more together." His words wrapped around her like a promise, soft yet forceful, igniting a flame of hope within her. Suddenly, the distant sound of tires crunching on gravel interrupted their tranquil moment. Alarm flashed in Laelani's eyes and her fingers stilled above the soil. "It's him, isn't it?" Desmond straightened, a flicker of concern shadowing his handsome features as he scanned the driveway. "We should." But before he could finish, the door swung open, revealing Laelani's husband, Malcolm Sinclair. With his commanding presence, he sauntered into the garden, his tailored suit echoing his authority as a crime boss. "Laelani, darling, there you are," he called out, his voice smooth like honey, yet carrying an undercurrent of control. Desmond settled back into his crouch, fingertips brushing against the herbs beside Laelani, tension crackling between them. She offered a tentative smile, an instinctual defense. "Just tending to the garden, love," she replied, the word choking her with unease. Malcolm's gaze flickered to Desmond, his eyes narrowing slightly. I see you have company. The subtext was apparent, a warning veiled in casual politeness. Busy day, Desmond? Just helping out where I can. The plants were in dire need of my expertise, he quipped, flashing Malcolm a disarming smile. Right, Malcolm replied, the syllable heavy with skepticism. Work first, then play, I always say. He stepped forward, drawing Laelani into his arms, pressing a kiss to her temple, a gesture laced with mingled affection and possessiveness. The clash of emotions left Laelani breathless, her heart thundering as she felt Desmond's presence alongside her, a steadying force in the chaos. As Malcolm argued plans for a charity gala, a front for his illicit activities, Desmond remained stoic, his charisma percolating amidst the entanglement of lies. Gently, Laelani murmured, "What's your plan for the evening?" "It all hinges on this," he answered, his voice low, an intimacy shared that only the two of them could grasp. "We need to be ready for what's coming." For a fleeting moment his hand brushed against hers, igniting an electric tingle that amplified the unspoken. "Can you promise me that?" she questioned, her breath hitching as she locked eyes with him, vulnerability laid bare, yearning echoing between them. Desmond leaned closer, his voice a soft murmur. "I promise I will always fight for you. For us." The world around them faded briefly, encapsulating two souls, entwined in tumultuous desire and unyielding hope, destined to forge their paths amid the chaos to come. Scene 101, perfectly imperfect. In the golden light of late afternoon, Laelani Sinclair stood in her kitchen, the aroma of simmering spices swirling with an air of bittersweet nostalgia. A handful of vibrant bell peppers lay strewn across the counter, their colors bursting against the muted backdrop of the home she shared with her husband, Marcus. The sound of a knife rhythmically chopping echoed in the vast silence, punctuated only by the occasional clinking of ceramic as she placed her ingredients into a pot on the stove. Past the flowing curtains, a gentle breeze curled around the room, cool against her skin, yet it did little to ease the simmering tension radiating from the stirrings in her heart. Today was different. The weight of her resolve flickered in the air, and beneath it all, anticipation hummed on her skin, suggesting that the mundane task of cooking held implications far deeper than any recipe could convey. Desmond Carver leaned casually against the doorframe, the warmth from the fading sun casting a dramatic silhouette across his tall frame. He watched Laelani slice through the peppers, her hands deft and sure, yet undeniably delicate, everything he couldn't stop admiring. "What's on the menu?" he asked, his voice breaking the stillness like a gentle laugh. It was a question more about her than the food. Laelani paused for a moment, glancing back over her shoulder. "Just something I thought might lift the spirits," she replied, her tone teasing, layered with meaning. "After all, who doesn't need a little comfort food?" Desmond pushed himself away from the doorframe, stepping closer, the smell of the sautéed onions mixing with his cologne, a heady combination that stirred something rich and instinctual within her. "Comfort, huh? Might need more than a good meal over here, don't you think?" Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, time unfurled, stretching thin enough to trap their shared breath. An unspoken understanding lingered between them, filled with the echoes of heated conversations and heated gestures that had left them both disarmed. "Maybe it's not about what's on the plate," Laelani mused, carefully punctuating her words, the weight of her glance challenging him. "Maybe it's about who's sitting across from you." Desmond raised an eyebrow, a wry grin forming at the corners of his mouth. He stepped forward, the tension palpable, wrapping around them like thin strands of silk. "You think I'm guaranteed a seat at your table?" An exhilarating smile danced on Laelani's lips, forcing her voice to drop, almost conspiratorial. "I guess it depends on whether you're still a distraction or a delight." "Definitely a delight," Desmond declared, leaning in, closing the distance considerably, their senses sharpening, fragile laughter intertwined with the pulse of the moment. "I could be both if you want." Just then, a sound from the living room, a sharp, urgent knock echoed through the house, cutting through their charged atmosphere. The moment shattered like so much fragile glass, leaving them both immobilized by sudden alertness. "Is Marcus home?" Desmond asked, the playfulness shifting away, giving way to a sharp edge of caution. Laelani frowned, irritation teasing at the edges of her voice. "He better not be on some power trip again. I just need something normal tonight." Silence enveloped them once more as they exchanged looks, urgency overtaking them. Desmond stepped back, motioning for her to keep cooking while he crept towards the door, slipping into the shadowed hall. Laelani's heart raced, fear surging like quicksilver, mixing uneasily with the thrill of forbidden intrigue. She tightened her grip on the knife and took a breath, steadied by the connection with him. It became a lifeline, anchoring her where the tide threatened to pull her under. As the knock sounded again, more insistent now, she turned back to the stove, stirring the pot with her free hand while her mind raced with possibilities. Each bubble that broke the surface echoed a thought, one she didn't quite want to voice yet. They were both imperfect, tangled in a world of blurred lines and heated passions. "Every night can't be a thief," she muttered under her breath, her voice tight with unshed doubts. The knock reverberated through the house again as Desmond opened the door, an encounter lingering just outside, threatening their fragile moment of intimacy and hope. "Keep cooking," he called over his shoulder, a reassuring smile traded for something darker flickering in his eyes. "Just don't burn it." Laelani chuckled, a nervous laugh at what they tried to dismiss as routine. As the door creaked open wider, welcoming shadows that loomed larger than laughter, she whispered softly to herself, "Who knows what tonight might serve?" Scene 102. Facing the unfinished. The dimly lit cafe buzzed with the murmurs of its patrons, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the delicate scent of vanilla pastries. Laelani Sinclair leaned back in her chair, tapping nervously on the wooden table, her brow furrowing, unable to shake the weight of lingering uncertainty. "Desmond, do you really think he suspects anything?" Laelani's voice was barely above a whisper, her gaze darting around, searching for any signs of unwanted attention. Desmond Carver, seated across from her, drummed his fingers against the table in a calculated rhythm that mirrored the pulse of his heart. "It's not what he knows. It's what he thinks he knows that concerns me." His eyes held a piercing intensity, each word wrapped in unspoken consequences. Outside, a fleeting shadow crossed the window, a figure hurriedly making their way through the rain-soaked street. A shiver sped up Laelani's spine. Anxiety coiled tightly around her. "And if he opens up the inspection into our lives?" "Then we'll take it as it comes," Desmond replied, leaning in, his tone softer yet laced with resolve. "You and I chased this feeling, Laelani. We can't let fear back us into a corner." The door swung open, sending a jingle from the bell above, pulling Laelani's thoughts away from Desmond. A vibrant group of friends entered: Mika, Ray, and Annika, each laughing heartily, their exuberance washing over the dreary cafe like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Look who we found," Mika shouted, her curls bouncing as she pulled Ray and Annika along. The trio approached their table, sharing bright smiles that lit the corners of Laelani's anxiety. "Too early for a little coffee adventure?" Ray teased, settling into a vacant chair. "Or is this a secret lovers' meeting?" "Seems like the plot thickens here," Annika chimed, a knowing glint in her eye as she leaned closer, the playful camaraderie unfolding like petals of a blooming flower. Desmond grinned, a touch of mischief in his voice. "You could call it a meeting of minds if you're interested." Laelani shot a glance at Desmond, her heart racing, not just from the thrill of their secret, but from the warmth of her friends surrounding them. "Because who would want to miss that?" she replied, her voice light, trying to cloak the tension wrapped around her heart. "I'm still sitting here for the pastries," Mika quipped, breaking into half a laugh. "Should you two take it to the back alley where all the juiciness sits?" Just as tension seemed to dissipate, it crept back, thick and heavy. The door swung open yet again, and Laelani's heart dropped. It was Jalen, her husband, who strode in like an army commander looking for dissenters among his ranks. His gaze scanned the room, eventually landing on the gathered friends. "Who let this circus in?" he exclaimed. The sharpness in his voice brought an edge to reality, slicing through the laughter. "Don't worry, baby. It's just our tight-knit family gathering." Laelani forced a smile, each word strained. She could feel the energy shift as Desmond stiffened, his charm fading into seriousness. "Why don't you join us, Jalen?" Desmond suggested, pushing back from the table, his presence becoming electric and magnetic. "It's always good to have the whole crew together." "Nah, I'm not in the mood for drama today," Jalen replied, arms crossed, dismissing Desmond with a flick of his wrist. The tension in the air crackled as if they were preparing for a showdown. "Why do you always assume there's drama? Maybe we're just here to support Laelani," Annika asked, her voice a mix of challenge and camaraderie, defiance hanging on each syllable. Mika joined in, eyes glinting. "No one's going to steal your throne, Jalen. We're here for the cake." The atmosphere strained against the rising pressures. Laelani sensed the collision approaching, and she mustered her courage, allowing vulnerability to weave through her defenses. "Jalen, what if?" She started before she paused, her breath hitching. "What if we talked about us?" The air shifted, the cafe fading into the background as the sharp realities of their relationships loomed larger than life. Desmond's gaze flared with concern, and in that moment it felt like they were at a precipice, teetering on the edge of an uncertain future. But Desmond's warmth beckoned. He leaned closer as though to shield her from the looming distance that existed not just between their table and Jalen, but also between the perceptions of who they were becoming. "Or we could just relish these pastries, right?" Desmond suggested slyly, nudging her slightly, his smile warm and inviting. Laelani exhaled softly, caught between her commitment to Jalen and the awakening which Desmond ignited within her, each moment swelling into a decision that felt inevitable and impossibly beautiful. Even now, despite the shifting tides, her heart swelled for Desmond, tangled intricately with passion and fear, the sweetness of freedom lingering just out of reach. Scene 103, Reflections of Love. In the dim light of Laelani's studio, the air was thick with the scent of linseed oil and fresh paint, a sanctuary brimming with half-finished canvases that held the echoes of her innermost thoughts. Colors clashed on the palette, mirroring the tempest within her. She stood before a blank canvas, the tension palpable in the silence as she weighed her emotions like leaden weights against her heart. Desmond, seemingly invisible at first, leaned against the doorframe, his presence as magnetic as the colors in Laelani's life. He watched her, his gaze sharp and penetrating, as she lost herself in the allure of her art. "Why do you keep stalling, Laelani?" he finally asked, his voice breaking the stillness. There was a hint of frustration laced with concern. He required her to embrace the transformation she was resisting. Turning slowly, Laelani met his gaze. "Because every stroke could change everything. What if?" She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's not what I want?" "Or maybe it's everything you've ever wanted," Desmond shot back, crossing the threshold into the room. His steps were firm, a stark contrast to her uncertainty. "You may hide from your fears, but I'm right here." Laelani's cheeks flushed with the weight of his words, but there was a clarity in her expression, a determination slowly coursing through her veins. "You don't understand, Desmond. What I uncover in this art, what it reveals about my heart, it's terrifying." "Then face it," he demanded, stepping closer, eyes blazing with passion. "Stop running." Her breath hitched as the space between them shrank, a magnetic pull that had nothing to do with art or the world outside. It was electric charged with all that was left unsaid. She hesitated for a moment, then declared softly, "I can't keep living a life that's not my own." "That's what I'm here for," he replied, each word deliberate, a promise hovering in the air. As if to challenge her retreat, he reached forward, tipping her chin with his fingers, urging her to confront her own reflection in his eyes. Suddenly, the serenity shattered. A loud, ominous crash echoed from outside, and Laelani jumped, her heart racing as the fragile calm of their moment was replaced by urgent chaos. Desmond's expression turned serious. He was all too aware of the threats that loomed in the shadows of their lives. "What was that?" Laelani asked, heart pounding, gripping the edge of the easel as if it could anchor her. Desmond's jaw clenched, his instincts kicking in. "Stay here," he ordered, but there was no staying, not with the adrenaline coursing through them both like wildfire. "I say, don't you dare leave," she exclaimed, anger flaring beneath her fear. "You can't just rush into danger without knowing what you're up against." He stepped closer, filling the space with his warmth and strength. "Laelani, I won't let anything happen to you, but I need to protect you from the life you're involved in," he said, tempered with urgency as he glanced back toward the door, aware of the encroaching chaos. "I can't lose you to this." Her voice cracked, vulnerability spilling into the air as she reached for his hand, fingers entwining. The moment lingered, charged with the weight of unspoken emotions. In an uncharacteristic display of tenderness, Desmond cupped her face, their foreheads touching, sharing the breath between them. "You're not going to lose me, but you have to trust me." The world outside continued to simmer, but for this brief instant, time stood still. She could feel the pulse of his heart, a steady reassurance. "Then show me how to fight for what we want, how to reclaim my life," Laelani urged, fierce conviction coursing through her veins. "Together," he replied, his tone earnest, igniting a flicker of hope. They lingered in the embrace of that moment, the noise outside a distant echo to the transformative power of shared resolve. Even as shadows threatened to encroach upon them, the love they were forging became a defiance against all that conspired to tear them apart. As the tension brewed and hearts reconciled in the swirl of uncertainty, Laelani whispered, "Desmond, show me." And in those 3 words, the promise of a life reborn held the weight of 1,000 choices yet to come. Scene 104, Blazing New Trails. The sun hung low over the cityscape, casting a golden hue across the brick facades and the intermingling stories etched into the heart of the neighborhood. Laelani Sinclair stood at the edge of the vibrant park, the air crisp and tinged with the scent of blooming magnolias. She inhaled deeply, the floral notes curling around her senses like gentle tendrils of inspiration. Desmond's laughter, warm and inviting, floated towards her like a melody. It made her pulse quicken and her heart swell with a longing that felt both exhilarating and treacherous. "Are we really doing this?" he said, the glint of mischief in his eyes as he shoved his hands into the pockets of his tailored jacket. "Why not?" Laelani replied, her voice playful yet layered with an undercurrent of seriousness. The warm spring breeze tugged playfully at her hair, sending strands dancing against her shoulders. She was about to step away from the confines of her carefully crafted life toward a path not defined by anyone but themselves. As they turned the corner past the park, the sounds of the city engulfed them, bustling pedestrians, the distant thrum of a busker's guitar. They were stepping into an adventure, the kind that ignited her spirit. With every brush of their shoulders, she felt the magnetic pull between them intensify. Nearby, the local coffee shop bustled with the midday crowd. The smell of roasted beans wafted through the air, and Desmond led her toward it. "A caffeine kick before we map out our plans? Do we even have plans?" Laelani quipped, raising an eyebrow, the playful banter stitching a hint of challenge into the air. Desmond smirked. "You mean aside from overthrowing your husband's empire? I'd say that's a solid starting point." Their laughter echoed as they entered the cafe, the cozy ambiance welcoming them like an embrace. She watched him stride to the counter, that same confident swagger striking her afresh. He ordered a dark roast and turned to her, his gaze serious, a split second before softening. "What about you? Talk to me, Laelani. What do you want?" She hesitated, turning the question over in her mind like an unfinished canvas. "I want to create, to live beyond this façade I've been painting for years." The instant her words left her lips, she knew they were tethered to something deeper, to the raw, unyielding truth of her desires. He took a step closer, leaning in as if to close the distance, not just physically but metaphorically. "Then let's make that happen. Together." Before she could respond, the sudden clang of the cafe door startled them. A group of well-dressed men strode in, their presence palpable. Unwelcome energy licked at the edges of her calm. Laelani recognized them immediately. They were connected to her husband's business, shadows etched in the fabric of her life. "Glad we found you," the lead man, a slick operator with an unsettling smile, said. The air shifted, crackling with tension. "You shouldn't be out here alone, my lady." Desmond straightened, instinctively placing himself between Laelani and the newcomers. "She's not alone, and she doesn't need your protection." "Is that so?" the man sneered, assessing Desmond with a cold appraisal. The friction in the air thickened, the stakes rising as each player recalibrated their positions in the room. "You should know," Desmond replied, his tone unwavering. "I'm her driver, and I'm well aware of the dangers lurking around her world." His words danced with unspoken vows, earnest and undeniable. Laelani felt a rush of pride at Desmond's fierce protectiveness, and, ironically, a flicker of defiance against the man who claimed to be her husband's ally. The tension bubbled like the frothy espresso brewing behind the counter. Times are changing, Laelani. You're in a world where survival is defined by loyalty. Choose wisely, the slick man warned, his voice laced with unctuous menace as he turned to leave. His entourage following suit. The moment he was gone, Desmond released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was intense. You can say that again, Laelani said, heart racing, but I refuse to let them dictate my life. With each word, a newfound resolve sparked within her. She turned to Desmond, possibilities swirling in her mind like the steam rising from their mugs. Let's blaze those new trails, Desmond. He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining as a silent agreement passed between them. Together. As they stepped outside, the weight of the swirling world seemed lighter, promising, as the sun dipped lower, igniting the horizon with a breathtaking palette of orange and purple. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would navigate it hand in hand, fueled by passion, danger, and the intoxicating thrill of what lay ahead. Desmond squeezed her hand gently, a promise etched in the air. Adventure awaits, he murmured, his eyes locked onto hers, bright with intent. And with that, they plunged into the unknown, liberated by their choices, hearts entwined in a dance of defiance and fire. Scene 105, steering clear. Desmond leaned against the sleek black sedan, the engine humming softly, a drone that matched the nervous energy in the air. Laelani stood just a few steps away, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, the fabric of her fitted cream sweater hugging her form, emphasizing her effortless elegance. The sky above them shifted to a turbulent gray, the clouds swirling like a storm of unspoken emotions. "Are you even listening to me?" she snapped, her voice a blend of frustration and vulnerability. Her sharp gaze met Desmond's, searching for any glimmer of understanding. He ran a hand through his slightly tousled hair, a gesture that betrayed his own inner turmoil. "It's not that simple, Laelani, you know that. We're walking a tightrope here." His voice was low, intent, as he took a cautious step towards her. "Walking a tightrope?" she echoed incredulously, a wounded laugh escaping her lips. "You mean juggling knives while blindfolded? You think I don't know the risks?" She turned away, staring into the distance at the fog that clung to the trees like a ghostly shroud. Desmond clenched his jaw, the tension evident in every line of his body. "This isn't just about us. Do you understand what we're up against?" "No, Desmond," she shot back, exasperation pouring from her. "What's at stake is my life and the choices I've made. You're not the only one in danger here." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to an almost conspiratorial whisper. "And what about your husband? He won't hesitate to make us pay, the moment he finds out." He didn't finish, but the implication nestled itself uncomfortably between them, like an uninvited presence. Laelani struggled with the tumult of her feelings, her heart racing as she catalogued the implications of their secret life. "I'm done hiding, Desmond." She said it almost defiantly, turning to face him fully. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of resolve and fear. "I can't keep living in this shadow." As the storm rolled above, there was a crack of lightning, momentarily illuminating Desmond's face. In that flicker, she caught a glimpse of the man who had pierced through her carefully constructed walls, and there was something deeply comforting yet terrifying in that realization. Then what? Leave it all behind? Your art? Your world? His voice wavered between anger and desperation, as if he feared she might actually step away from the life they both knew. "It's not worth it if I can't be free." Her voice softened. She took a hesitant step closer, vulnerability pouring from her. "You have no idea how stifling it is to live like this." Desmond reached for her, but Laelani paused, holding his gaze. "And you think taking risks will solve everything?" She shook her head, the softness dripping from her voice now layered with pain. "You think I'm desperate?" "No," he said sharply, then softened. "I think you're alive, and that scares me." The intensity of his gaze held hers, a silent understanding swirling between them, filled with longing and fear. Just then, the rumble of another vehicle broke their moment. It was a black SUV, the kind that roared like a predator, and disappointment flickered across Laelani's features at the intrusion. "Damn it," Desmond muttered, his instincts kicking in. He stepped back, solidarity abruptly replaced by the need to assess the threat. "Get inside. I'll handle this." "No!" she cried, a sudden rush of panic flushing her cheeks. "We face this together." He hesitated, torn between the need to protect her and the urgency of the moment. As she stepped into the car beside him, the tension between them thickened. It was a taut string ready to snap. Inside the car, the air was rife with unresolved feels. Laelani leaned against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she attempted to gather her thoughts, while Desmond's fingers tapped nervously on the steering wheel. Suddenly she reached out, placing her hand on his. "Whatever happens, I want us to be honest. No more secrets. Promise me." He met her gaze, and for a fleeting moment the space between them dissolved. "I promise," he said, though they both knew the weight of that promise could shake the very foundations of their lives. Desmond glanced toward the approaching vehicle, the storm finally breaking overhead, sending sheets of rain cascading down the windshield as if mirroring the tumult in their hearts. "Hold on tight," he warned. "It's going to get rough." Laelani's grip tightened on his hand as they prepared to weather the chaos. "Just steer clear," she breathed, determination igniting in her eyes. Scene 106. Strength in Unity. The late afternoon sun poured golden light over the sprawling city, illuminating the vibrant street art that danced along the brick walls of the warehouse district. Each mural told its own story of struggle and triumph, reflecting resilience carved into the community. The air buzzed with the electric energy of ambition hanging heavily, almost tangibly, as Laelani Sinclair stepped out of her vintage car, a gift from her husband that had once represented loyalty, but now felt like a bittersweet chain. Her heart raced, a drum echoing within her chest, as the realization washed over her. This place, with its sprawling canvases of color, felt more alive than her own heart had in years. "Another day in paradise?" Desmond Carver quipped, leaning against the hood of her car, eyes glinting with mischief as they caught the sun. His presence was like a magnetic force, pulling at the chords of her soul, the exact intensity of feeling she hadn't realized she craved. "If paradise includes my husband's imminent takeover of this neighborhood, then sure," Laelani replied, her voice laced with sarcasm that masked an undercurrent of fear. "Or maybe it's just hell dressed up in designer clothes." Desmond pushed off the car, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "You need to embrace the chaos. He can't own every inch of the canvas." His gaze shifted to the colorful walls, a canvas of rebellion, a mirror of her own desires and aspirations. "Besides, I thought we were here to paint our own future, one brushstroke at a time." Their banter was the thread connecting them, playful yet fraught with the tension building between them, like a tightly coiled spring. Laelani stepped closer, the distance between them evaporating against the backdrop of a city that pulsed with unfulfilled dreams. Just then, a sudden commotion interrupted their moment. A group of local artists, led by Mariam French, known for her bold social commentary in her work, hovered outside, debating passionately over the upcoming exhibition. "If we want to make a statement, we need to stand unified," Mariam declared, her voice ringing sharp, cutting through the atmosphere. "Divided by personal signatures, we become forgotten." "Unity is a lie," retorted Talon, a hot-headed newcomer to the scene, waving in gesticulation. "We're artists. Individuality is our calling card. Where's the value in sameness?" From the sidelines, Fiola, quiet but observant, chimed in softly, "But perhaps a blend of voices is stronger. What if we combined our styles? Make something revolutionary?" Desmond leaned toward Laelani, his breath warm against her ear. "Sounds like a conversation worth skimming the surface of. Maybe we're a couple of strokes away from breaking the mold ourselves." Laelani laughed, feeling momentarily light. If only it were that simple. Her eyes darted toward the boisterous crowd, where artists shouted and laughed, voices vibrant as the paint on their canvases. She wished to leap into the fray, where freedom met resistance head-on, where she could shed her luxurious chains for the thrill of disruption. "Come on, let's go shake things up," Desmond suggested, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. "Art's supposed to be daring, just like us, right?" In that moment, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the exchanges of creativity and opinion. Laelani took his hand, feeling the warmth and vitality radiating between them. Without a word, they joined the huddle, a world of discussions unfurling before them. "Why don't we create something that captures our city's heartbeat? Something that awakens the spirit," an artist shouted over the crowd. It was a rallying cry, resonating with the very essence of the neighborhood. Laelani felt invigorated. Let's paint life as it is, full of resistance, passion, and love? Desmond interrupted, teasingly raising an eyebrow, igniting the air between them with a spark so electric it could have powered the city itself. Yes, love, chaos, all of it, she exclaimed, her heart racing, ideas flowing free as they mingled with laughter and encouragement from those around. They began to whisper plans to each other in conspiratorial tones, a blend of dreams and truth woven seamlessly into the tapestry of their aspirations. As night approached, the shadows danced with possibilities. Laelani realized strength didn't just come from within. It thrived in unity, in shared dreams and collective voices, echoing louder than the singular whispers of doubt. Their fingers brushed, igniting a promise as thrilling as the sunset, a promise tinged with uncertainty, yet vibrant with hope. In this chaotic swirl of lives intersecting, they found an undeniable connection that painted both their fates and futures, forever entwined. Scene 107, Finding Home. The dusky twilight cast a glow over the sprawling garden, the last sighs of sunlight filtering through the leaves, dappling the ground with soft shadows. A gentle breeze rustled the blooms, sending the sweet, heady scent of jasmine wafting through the air. Laelani leaned against the wooden rail of the terrace, her gaze drifting out toward the horizon where the golden light of day surrendered to the creeping night. "What does home mean to you, Desmond?" she asked, her voice low and reflective, her fingers lightly tracing the weathered wood beneath her palm. Desmond stepped beside her, his presence grounding yet electrifying. He shifted slightly, the warmth of his body almost melting into hers. "Home?" he mused, the corners of his mouth lifting into a thoughtful smile. "It's not just a place, Laelani. It's where you find yourself, where your heart feels safe." Laelani turned to him, searching his eyes, finding a depth there that resonated with her own insecurities and ambitions. "But what if what you thought was home isn't where you truly belong?" He looked out at the growing shadows, the sun retreating like secrets hidden in the depths of night. "Then you find a new one. That's the beauty of it. Change can lead to discovery." His gaze drifted back to her, igniting a challenge between them. That discovery can be terrifying. It can provoke everything you thought you knew. Before she could respond, the gentle sound of laughter erupted from inside the house, drawing both of their eyes momentarily inward.